Welcome to the Empowered by Design podcast. I am Dr. Liz, your host. I am so excited for this episode today. We have a very special episode for you. Two guests. One you have met before, Vicky Alercia, our counselor at Visionistas by Design. She is here to talk to us about her journey into ecotherapy and using eco-psychology principles in her work. Vicky is an LPC and she has recently been certified in ecotherapy. So we are so excited to have Vicky joining us again. And you've heard from Vicky on previous episodes. And we are also joined with Dennis Kiley, the founder of Eco Psychology Initiative. I'm going to read a little bit about Dennis, and then we are going to jump into this really fun, very empowering conversation on eco psychology and how to bring the power of nature, this kind of journey home to recognizing the power that we have at our fingertips, at our toes, to really help us in our healing, growing, learning journeys. Stay tuned. Welcome. I'm so excited for this episode of the Empowered by Design podcast. We have two special guests with us today, Vicky Alercia, LPC, and Dennis Kiley, the founder of Eco Psychology Initiative. He applies the principles of nature and psychology to foster healing and healthy change. Dennis offers programming that ranges from ecotherapy to climate psychology and psychological biomimicry. He works with individuals, organizations, and communities. Dennis lives on the coast of Maine amidst the mountains, woods, and waters of Acadia National Park. Welcome, Dennis and Vicky. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we are going to jump right into talking all about ecotherapy, eco-psychology, your initiative. Vicky, I'll ask you to start. We talk about how we connected. Clearly, you and I have been in connection for several years now, and I'm so excited to have been, part of seeing this journey of yours in incorporating ecotherapy and these principles into your work here in the therapy room and then beyond the therapy room. Give us a little bit about what it has been like for you and how this has been so special.
Well, this year, for some reason, I felt led to identify a specific focus with being a therapist. I don't know what it was about this year, but I just felt led to do that. And I was thrown around a few different ideas. And I thought to myself, well, actually, it was my spiritual director who had presented to me, Vicky, when you choose something, make sure that it's really aligned with who you are as opposed to who you think you should be, right? It's not other people's perspective or what society is making me feel like I'm supposed to choose, but what's truly aligned with me. And two things came up. One was just spirituality and the other was nature. And actually there is a lot of opportunity to connect both of them as well, which is pretty beautiful. And so I started exploring all the different programs for ecotherapy, and I looked up a few already, but I couldn't find one that just really seemed to fit until I saw the program that Dennis offered. And I just loved the way that it was structured, and it just really seemed like a good fit. I mean, should I get more into the program now, or just, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So listening to his lectures just really made me even more excited about obtaining the certification, because you could tell in his voice how much passion he had for what he was teaching. And then you just kind of feed off of that. And if someone was watching me, like listening to the lectures, they'd probably think I'm a little bit odd, because I'm like, yes, oh, that's so great. Oh, I love that. I need to listen to that again, which I think really just shows my passion for it then, the excitement and just hearing all of it. And it's so beautiful and healing. And I feel like I'm not even doing it justice in how I'm explaining my feelings towards it, which is why I thought it's perfect to just have Dennis here to then go into more detail. But yeah, I love it. I highly recommend his program. I think that's a good starting point for the podcast.
Yeah, and I love picturing you. I love that picture that you painted for us of you
Can you
watching it and
imagine
being
me
like
doing
so
that?
enthusiastic about it. I can see it. I can see it in my mind. I can see it absolutely. Yeah, so it is a perfect spot for us to throw the ball to Dennis. Dennis, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Please jump in and tell us all about the work that you do.
Well, what a wonderful introduction and sharing that you offered there, Vicky. I'm very honored. And I felt my own excitement and enthusiasm. As you aptly pointed out, I love this work generally around eco-psychology, which, Liz, you encapsulated some of the programming I do. And specifically with ecotherapy, it's a personal passion. And I love to be able to share that with others and both feel and hear and see the light bulb go off, as Vicky, I think, perfectly illustrated right there, because I think it's not only about trying to maybe share some ideas and practices and strategies, but just as much it's helping each person find their own experience of eco-psychology and how that can take root and blossom in their own life, and then how that can be shared. Because I think in that way, it becomes transformative, not only for us, but for others. And there's this beautiful cycle of reciprocity where we're giving and we're receiving at the same time. And so I think that very specifically and generally is what I love about the field. I, as you said, Liz, have a number of different programs that I offer and enjoy all of them. I've had business advisors say, oh, you should just pick one. But for me, I enjoy the diversity of it and being able to, whether it be ecotherapy or looking at nature and spirituality or a number of other programs. So it's just something that I love sharing and feel really grateful to be here and talk with others, and including hearing about Vicky and her experience, because I'm cheering you on, and it's probably my favorite part about the work.
As you were talking, I'm really curious when you said it's a personal passion. And I think that that's really something that I love about our our opportunity as helping professionals is to be able to go to school, have the degree, have the the credentials that we need to help people, and then it makes it so much more meaningful, enjoyable for us. Like, I love going to work. I love showing up at my office. I just love it. And so I know that that's not the case for everyone in the world. Um, and it's such a privilege to love our work. And so when we can really be passionate, add that passion in, is so beautiful. I would love to hear from both of you just about the like a moment or a time in your life when it was like, oh, this is it. This is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing and using to help other people.
Honestly, I think there's so many. So one of my struggles is getting stuck in my head. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, right? How do I just stop overthinking? How do I get out of my head? How do I ground myself and be able to be present? And for me, it's being in nature. It's taking my shoes and socks off and putting my feet in the grass. It's laying on the ground and looking up at the clouds, and this is with or without my kids, which I think makes it even more fun, right? Like this childlike state and just enjoying everything that's around you, from the breeze to feeling the sun on your skin. And I think there's something just so beautiful and healing in those moments. And for me, those are the best moments where I've truly been able to be calm and grounded and feel lighter. And if I can help someone else reach that point, even just for a moment, I think that's something really huge.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Vicky. I have two different ones, and they're both somewhat simple, but I think speak to the beauty and the profundity of this work, which is in its simplicity. And one is a client who I'd been meeting with recently indoors, And it just wasn't getting kind of the traction that I think he had hoped for and that I had. And I had said, well, why don't we just try going outside? And it was over the course of just a singular session, 50 to 55 minutes, where all of a sudden I just felt his whole nervous system calming. And he was able to drop in and connect with himself, which fundamentally I think is where real transformation takes place. And so it was not only that process, but then there was something else that transpired that I think was a beautiful synergy between himself and the natural world and me, and talk about relationships. And something was able to click, and he was really able to drop in a way that he hadn't before. And so in that way, it wasn't speaking to a group of hundreds, but it was one person in one moment that made a meaningful difference. And that to me is what it's all about. And then the second example I'll give, paradoxically, is actually online. But it's when I get a chance to bring people from across the globe to come together to talk about nature. And that's the beautiful thing about ecopsychology, is most of it is intended to be outdoors, but there is a way that nature as a subject matter can bring people together, and then to feel people to drop into their hearts. And I think the world needs a lot more of that generally. I think specifically and individually, we need people more connected to their hearts and their souls and their spirits, and to see what was possible through technology and the impetus of nature as a subject matter to get people who live in such diverse corners of the world. This one time I'm thinking of particular, a woman was in the remote Himalayas of India. And we had other people, there was someone from Africa and all these places, and they came together. And in that moment, so much of what separates us fell away. And we were actually able to be in the heart and the center of things, which I think was beautiful for us individually and as a group.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I love that, the ability to cross, borders of time and space and geography, to be able to come together and be with people and connect at that soul, spirit, heart level is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. As I was thinking about that question, where it came from was remembering even just some of my own personal life experiences that have been so profound for me, profound and also simple, right? I love that you talked about that duality of just standing outside in nature. And one of the moments I'm thinking of is a trip that I took a couple of years ago with my family to Hawaii, and we were climbing this, I wish I could remember the name of it, the mountain. But we were up so high, we were up so high, and just being able to look out at the beauty of nature and the mountains and the vegetation, and just being there. I remember, it makes me emotional too. This I do remember. We were on a boat trip, that same trip with my family, and I have a son and a daughter, and my son and I were standing on the boat, and it was at the Nepali coast. So we were in a boat and just like looking at the mountain and the where you could see the different growth of the island from where the lava and the volcanic, evidence is. And we're kind of seeing like the beauty of we're so close to the clouds. Like you almost felt like you were in the clouds. And my son said, Mom, it feels like we're so close to heaven. And I was like, oh, yes, it feels like we're so close to heaven, and it was just like that moment of connection in my own soul, and being able to like be with my kid who's a teenager, and he's feeling the power of nature. And it's something you can hardly describe sometimes, because you feel it in your bones and in your body in a way that is beyond description, that even captures it.
Yeah. Oh, that's such an amazing story, Liz. And I would offer that, what I understand about your work and this podcast, there feels an alignment with where I'm coming from, but it's people who want the most from their life and their relationships. And we live in a culture that says, take this pill, buy this product, use this app, go on, fill in the blank. And it really comes back to those simple moments of being with loved ones, and how nature is so accessible for many of us, even if it may not be the dramatic landscapes that you've described, that those simple moments that are accessible to us. that may not seem the shiny object that our culture tells us is so perfect. And yet those are the moments we remember. Those are the moments that contribute to our growth and our healing and feeling the sense of connectedness, both with ourselves and others, that are priceless. And that's what makes my work so easy, is that I'm not telling you that you have to do elaborate yoga calisthenics or whatever it is. It's like, go get some fresh air, feel the sun on your face, connect with the natural world. And pretty consistently, and the research backs this up, you're going to feel so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do this in your backyard. You can go find a little patch of grass wherever you are, even if you're living in a city where there's parks, and just standing outside in the fresh air and looking up at the beautiful sky can be healing in itself. Vicky, why don't you tell us a little bit about, so far here at Visionistas, we love to try new things and make new programs. And one of the things that you have created this year here is the Grounding with Gratitude gatherings, where you are incorporating your training and your certification in ecotherapy and ecopsychology into this programming. Tell us a little bit about what that has been like for you so far.
It's been lovely. It's really so you saw the space, right? So the local park, and I know, Dennis, you're probably not familiar with it, but it's called Jacobsburg Park. It's one of the local parks. And Liz had the pleasure of seeing the space that I had chosen to offer these groups. And it is completely closed in with trees, and a fully grassed area. And we've hosted 2 or 3 groups at that spot so far at that location. And there's something just so peaceful about being in that space. And every single individual that has joined that group has felt that as well. And just sitting and closing your eyes and breathing and taking it all in has been so freeing. And to see when we're all kind of connecting on the same level, like feeling the same things and just feeling lighter and getting away from what I want to say society has kind of normalized, right? Like, we don't have our phones on, there's not technology there, we're just being present and grounded. And that's where the healing can occur, right? On all levels, right? It doesn't have to be something profound, but just providing that space for individuals to come. And I'm assuming Liz will talk about the mini wellness retreat as well, and some of the things that have come up in those moments. But we could stay there. We only do the group for an hour, but I think to myself, I just want to stay here all day, and I think the thought for me is, how do we take what we're feeling in that short period of time and bring it with us, right? Because it's so easy to say, okay, I'm present in this hour or this time frame, but then you go right back to your norm, whatever that is, right? The hustle and bustle and the busy schedule and the routine and all that. And I want to encourage individuals moving forward to realize, you don't need to come back to the park and be fully immersed in nature. You can find little ways throughout your day, throughout your week, where you can still connect to nature and be grounded.
Yeah, I have lots to say about our wellness retreat that we had there at Jacobsburg. And it's so beautiful that we have, again, the gratitude for us having that space right in our backyard. One of the things that we said about our mini wellness retreat, which came from, we incorporated our specialties of, wellness and gratitude and using nature, and really coming home to nature to provide a beautiful opportunity for connection with ourselves, with each other, with nature in that space. And so you have brought that to us, right? Like, I loved when you were like, okay, I found a space and I called and they said we can use it. And it's just lovely that we have that here. And so, yeah, we will talk a little bit more about that. And also, I think too, the aspect for you of connecting gratitude with nature. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'm gonna defer to some of the lectures that Dennis had presented with his certification program, in terms of the lessons that nature shows us. And that's one of the things that I like to share in the groups is what can we be grateful for that's in front of us right now, right? What is nature teaching us? And, like what represents us? Are there aspects of nature that represents us? We don't really need a lot in life to feel happy or healthy, and again, kind of shifting away from what's considered the norm of society and just kind of be present in those moments. And for me, the nature representation that works for me is that of a tree. That's my nature symbol that has kind of connected with me for many years, to the point where it's the logo for my business, because I want to be rooted, right, and truly aligned with what works for me, even if someone else doesn't understand it, and that's okay, right? But I want to continue to grow and branch out, in so many different directions. So yeah, I mean, just looking at all the lessons and all the things that we can be grateful for, because I think it's so easy to take for granted, right? The fact that we're able to get up and walk in nature and see nature and hear nature, right? And just ground ourselves in that.
I love metaphors. And one of the ways that I think about some of my work is that I'm just trying to plant some seeds and give people the tools and some of the knowledge that they then, to kind of use a garden metaphor, they then create their own garden. And it's been so wonderful to see Vicky do that. Of here, I've shared some ideas and strategies and et cetera, that is involved in our ecotherapy training. But then to just see Vicky run with it, and I see this happen with a lot of different students, is they have their own ideas and places of passion and what I call spark. And I saw Vicky's flyer in her description. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to take that. Like, why do I live so far? And gratitude in particular, I think, is a really great one for a couple of reasons. One, we just know that there's so many health and wellness benefits associated with that. But another is that it's somewhat naturally elicited when we're in the out of doors. And for those who like research, I thought I would just reference a couple of things that tie into Vicky's program here. One is just being out of doors. According to the researcher Matthew White, for about 2 hours a week is where we really start to get long-term benefit. And there's a lot of like physiological benefits and relational, but just for the emotional ones, which is here what Vicky's talking about and the subject here, is we know that the natural world and time outside reduces stress and anxiety, fear, depression, and negative rumination, while at the same time, it increases not only positive affect like compassion, gratitude, etc. So it increases positive affect generation, as it's called, but it also increases positive affect retention. So kind of get rid of that jargon there. It's like it helps boost positive feelings like gratitude, and it helps those positive feelings sustain and stay with us for much longer periods of time. And so therein we have anecdotally from our own experiences, programs like Vicky's, as well as the research that just says, this really intentional time outside and being mindful is going to be so good for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing in that research and helping us to see how it really can decrease the things that we don't like and increase the things that make us feel good, right? That is at the bottom line of what we do as helpers is we're trying to eliminate and help people eliminate the things that are stressful and that are uncomfortable in life. We can't eliminate all of it, right? But when we sit and help people do like an inventory of where are there places where we can get rid of some of the unnecessary stress, and then we're doing that. And then we're building up those other positive characteristics, positive opportunities, positive supports. And what you said is by being outside, nature does that for us, right? It's so beautiful that nature's like, it wants us to do it. It's on our side. It's like, come on, I'm here. There's so much here to offer for you. So use me, right? And we just stand there and, we're in that beautiful cycle of being able to decrease those things that are uncomfortable and increase the things that are positive and comfortable and healing for us. Love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. It's a beautiful both and.
Yes.
And one of the things that I say to students all the time, both in the training and then when I do consultations out of that, is don't fill the space too much, because what you were saying there, Liz, is really important. Is nature kind of wants to do the work with and for us. And so the more that we fill the space and try and do too much, we're actually impeding and getting in the way. And so it's like, absolutely create some structure and some activities, and then allow nature to do her thing. And that's part of the magic. And we just got to get out of the way and be cheerleaders.
Yeah.
As he was saying that just allow nature to do the work. It did make me think of the one group that I was facilitating where we started off by just, I wouldn't even say meditation, but just sitting in nature with our eyes closed, in our chosen positions. And we do go in with like our itinerary, right, in our time frame, but I noticed after 10 minutes of just taking in nature and being present, I could just feel where the participants were at. And I checked in with them real quickly and I just said, hey, listen, like off of my schedule, I have something else planned, but if I'm feeling correctly, let's do 10 more minutes of this, of just taking in that nature and what we're all feeling. And they were like, yes, like let's just keep taking in nature. Those activities can wait. And I think that's really crucial. That might sound a little intense, but to be aware of that, right? So just to Dennis's point, I think that's really important, to be aware of that with these groups. Yeah.
And Vicky, you just right there captured this idea of using eco-psychological principles. So it's partly the time out in nature, but it's what I've talked about as like a psychological or spiritual biomimicry, that we look to the natural world and what are some of the most important principles that allow our planet to thrive and be resilient and regenerative, et cetera. And one of those is being adaptive. Right. And so that is part of our work that Vicky, you perfectly captured and are doing, is recognizing what is the need of the moment and being able to adapt and to meet to that. And so there is a lot of, different principles within psychological biomimicry, but I think adaptation is one of the most important ones for ecotherapists and for any of us in our life. And that, we look as well to kind of opposite examples of that, and look at the tree that doesn't bend, it is going to break. And I think similarly, whether it's teachers or clinicians, parents, human beings, like when we don't adapt in our life, that's where real struggles and suffering arise.
Yeah, I love that. The rigidity can be that thing that keeps us stuck. And Vicky, thank you for sharing that moment. It brought me to really think about even our collaborative wellness retreat that we did together, in that we went into it, yes, with a plan and an outline. And you and I also said in planning and preparing for it is, we have these things planned, but we're really comfortable going with the flow and tuning into the moment of what the energy is there. And I think that's the one thing that we really stress here at Visionistas. And Dennis, you talked about a few of these a little earlier, where we're really helping people check in with their body, their mind, their soul, their heart, their spirit. And because we do the same, right? Like we've become really intentional about checking in, like, okay, what's going on for me right now? And what might this be of my own energy, but what might I be picking up from the group, or if it's an individual that we're working with, and really be able to invite the group to put words to that if they can, and if they're willing to do that. For our wellness retreat, one of the most favorite moments that I had was, we had a couple of leaf like rainfalls. Basically, we were in the space, and it was so amazing. Just the leaves just started raining down on us. And it was like this moment where whoever was speaking, whether it was me, you, or one of the participants, everybody just stopped and was like, I'm getting chills right now as I'm remembering it. Like, we just kind of looked and we just let it happen and embraced the moment of whatever that moment was. And I think the first time it happened, it was very much like beautifully placed in a time where we're talking about what do we need to let go of, right? As we leave summer,
And nature
enter the
answered
autumn
us.
season, because we had this, nature was like, yes, we're working together. And it was just such a beautiful moment that we all shared. And then it happened again, right? And so it speaks to the connection that we have, that nature hears us, we're tuned into nature. And when we play together, it's just such a beautiful collaborative effort.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I'd been there, but I get chills even hearing the story. And it reminds me of a lot of the research that's being done around awe, and that we know that that's really important for just health and well-being, et cetera. And we also know that the natural world is one of the best and most effective ways for eliciting awe. And it doesn't have to be, top of a mountain feeling like we're close to heaven, though that was awesome that your son said that. It can just be watching a leaf fall down, because when we're coming from a place of presence and awareness, like, there's such delight and wonder at that. And something else you were saying, just while I'm riffing here, is from that place of connection, I think we connect into something else that's really vital, which is um, instinct or intuition. And I think it's that place of communication between us and spirit, us and nature. And whether that is as a facilitator of like, you know what, we're just going to give 10 more minutes to this meditation, or whether that's, you know what, I think it's just time for silence, or whatever it is. But that inner wisdom and communication that comes through, eco-psychologically, I call instinct, I think is like one of the most important places of connection that we can cultivate.
Yeah, I agree. That connection with spirit, and intuition is so, just as I grow as a person, as a woman, I'm becoming much more in tune with, oh, there you are, intuition, right? And loving that nature it amps it up, right? It amps up the opportunity to tap into the spiritual forces that connect us all with each other, with the divine, with this universe. It's so lovely and beautiful.
Yeah, for audience members, you don't know this, or those listening, but Vicky and I are just like vigorously nodding our head as Liz says that.
So I promised we would come back to the wellness retreat, which we talked a little bit about with the leaves. And even though you weren't there, Dennis, we did make a reel. So I will link that in the show notes so you can kind of see the leaves falling. We captured it during that. And that's another thing that's, it's kind of one of those like dualities of, you want to be present and you also want to capture these things and remember them forever. So sometimes it's a struggle when we're doing the wellness retreat, because I'm like, oh, I want to take a video of this. And then I also want to be present. So I think that that's a beautiful thing that we're constantly navigating in our worlds of like that power of being present and in the moment and grounded in this moment, and just knowing that even if you don't capture it on your phone, that's what the beautiful part of our mind and the memories are. But this one we did capture, so we'll link that in the show notes. And really, truly, part of what we're doing here today is inviting people to join us. If you're in our area, and if you're not in our area, take a road trip and come for Vicky's Grounding with Gratitude gatherings. Our next mini wellness retreat will be, we're planning it for later in the later in the fall, before winter, before it gets too cold to comfortably be outside in Pennsylvania. But we loved it so much. We got such great feedback from the women who were there and wanted to stay longer. And we all were like, we could be here all day. But we would love for you all to come and experience this in person, because as we're talking about it and having those tingly feelings, it's like, I can't wait for the next one. So definitely stay tuned and follow us. You can get on the email list. There will be links in the show notes so that you will be the first to know when those events happen here with us at Visionistas. So Dennis, can you tell us a little bit more about the programs that you have where Vicky is a part of? She talked a little bit about it in the beginning, and tell us, for those of us listeners who are interested in learning more about how they could potentially incorporate your eco-psychology, ecotherapy training and knowledge and skills into their work, how would they find you?
Yeah, thank you. I would be happy to share a little bit more for those who are interested. And just to preface this by saying, those who may have questions, by all means, send us an email. But our website is the ecopsychologyinitiative.com. We have a number of different programs, but the one that we've been talking about that Vicky took is our ecotherapy training. And it's generally intended for educators, clinicians, healthcare professionals, those who want to use more of the natural world in their work. But there's a lot of people who just take this because they want to be more intentional and conscientious about how they are interacting with the natural world so that they can get the most from their experiences. So it certainly needn't be a professional purpose that one would be seeking out this training. But the training's an online training and it's multi-module. We offer it self-paced insofar as that there's lectures that people can download and listen. There's practices and resources. Once a year, we offer it live so that there's live webinars that participants can attend. But we try and cover as a curriculum, first looking at what is nature, how and why is it so effective. So some of that is looking and encapsulating the research, but then it's also looking at what are some of the reasons for that, ranging from evolutionary, spiritual, mindfulness, stress reduction, et cetera. And then thereafter, we move on. And one of the things I will say is I'm more interested in practice and application than I am just in theory. And so a lot of the rest of the training is, okay, how do you start to talk about it with people for those who are professionally interested? So how do we, what I call create the container? How are we introducing it into our languaging, into our different types of publicity materials? How do we start to get clients for those who might not already be interested? Fortunately, a lot of people are, but for those who aren't, how do we get them engaged and open to the possibility of taking this? Then we move into some of the different ways to facilitate these experiences. Ecotherapy can include forest bathing, it can include groups, it can include one-on-one. And so even though our program is introductory, I try and offer very specific targeted content for each of those subject matters. So you want to lead a group, you want to work with one-on-one, you want to lead a class. So we offer different curriculum and content around that. Then we look at how do we integrate it. There is a section, this may not be interesting for everyone, but more and more people are wanting to process and work around climate change, so that there is some subject matter about how do we use the natural world and ecotherapy for kind of the crises that are affecting our planet. So that's just a quick recap and review of some of what this training is about. It includes a chance to meet with me one-on-one to individualize it. So yeah, by all means, check out our website and go to our classes under ecotherapy, and you're welcome to send me an email. I'm happy to chat with people, as Vicky knows, and maybe you've heard in my voice in this podcast. I'm very excited about it and happy to connect with folks.
Yes, your passion is is wonderful. I love it. And so just to repeat, if you are interested in learning more, no matter for whatever your personal or professional endeavors, you can find more with Dennis at Eco Psychology Initiative and on social media, as well as your website. That's where you would go to find Dennis and his work and how it can help you in your life and your work.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very nice, quick synopsis that I did not provide.
Yeah. I love that you really, because I'm a nerd and I love the research. So I really love the theory as well as the blend that you provide, that synthesis of here's why, here's what the research says, right? Because that's important. It's important that we have that evidence to say, okay, we know when we go outside, it feels good, but also there's been studies to show us how beneficial it is in helping us heal and grow and be well in our lives. And then you provide really concrete ways that we can do that and incorporate that into our lives. One thing I think for the listeners, I would love to hear from both of you of if you were going to tell people, okay, today, here are some action steps that you can do today, maybe 2 or 3 things that kind of incorporate what we're talking about in this broad sense and say, here are 2 to 3 really easy, actionable steps that you can take today that will help you understand and experience this beautiful, magnificent eco-psychology principles and experience?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, Liz, and one I'm happy to answer. I would say one, set realistic expectations of what and how much you're going to do. A lot of people feel like, oh, I need to go out for an hour and it needs to be so spiritual or contemplative. And so start with where you are. And if you've got 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. Try to leave your devices aside so that you can really just be as present as possible. And know yourself. If it works to just have some quiet time to sit, great, do that. But if not, just take a slow walk. So I think the first is to start where you are, be realistic about the time you have, where your headspace is. So get outside for a little bit, set your devices aside. How much can you increase your awareness and just slow down and be as mindful as possible? I think is the first one. The second is ongoingly find what you're interested in and incorporate that in nature. So if you are really interested in exercise, well, do your exercise outdoors in one way or in the other. Or if you love socializing with people, well, instead of the lunch and the coffee, like, hey, let's go for a walk. Or if you like reading a book or journaling, okay, cool, do that outside, so that in that way we find our passions, and rarely can we not integrate those with being outside and in the natural world.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. And make sure you leave your device inside.
Yes. Did I mention leave the device inside?
You did, you did, you did. I'm just repeating it because it's important. Yeah, I think one of the most fun memories I have is when I first learned about grounding and read the research, saw a video, and like, oh my gosh, grounding. And it was winter, and my kids were little, and there was snow on the ground, and I'm like, we're going outside, take off your socks and shoes. And they're like, what? You're letting us run around outside in the snow without our shoes on? I'm like, yes, it's good for us. So it's like those things of, you don't have to do it. I love that you said you don't have to go like make an hour. You don't have to carve out an hour, but if you have an hour, do it. But it can be 3 minutes where you're just wherever you are, whatever season it is, take yourself outside, put your feet on the ground and be there. Just be there and breathe. We love that aspect of recognizing how important our breath is to anchor us here in this present moment. Whether you keep your eyes open or you close them, I love to do both because I love seeing nature. And then I also love when I'm closing my eyes, how I can hear the whispers of nature through my soul and in my body. So there's no wrong way to do it. It's just making that intentional effort and starting wherever you're at and just exploring the beauty of nature that we have at our disposal.
Over this past month or so, I've created a prayer garden in my backyard. And so one of the things that Dennis, has shared and has lectured is that you don't need to be completely immersed in nature, right? So where I reside, there's trees everywhere. There's not much space, I'm sorry, there's houses everywhere. There's not much space, but there's like one tree in the backyard over here and one over there. And we just have like a little stone area, but with that, I have a bird feeder and I have a water fountain and I have a wind chime and I have these solar lights, and I bought some comfortable reclining chairs and, gradually kind of adding to it. And the one morning, like 7 a.m., I walk out to take out the trash and there are 20 plus birds just all around this prayer garden, and there's squirrels jumping around and the rabbits are coming up, and I feel like I could get emotional, which I think is beautiful in itself. But like I froze, like I just froze, and um I just wanted to stay there, and I was just like, who can I tell? Like, who can I tell? Because I want someone else to witness this with me. And then I was like, I need to go grab my phone so I can record this, so I can share it with someone. Right, to your point that you said earlier, Liz, right? Like, you want to be present because, like, I couldn't have imagined just it all coming together. And from a parent's perspective, with having young children where video games and technology seems to be such a huge thing, my boys will now come out and sit in these reclining chairs with me, and just it's an opportunity for us to either just sit there and wait for the birds to come flying by, or almost get hypnotized by the breeze and the leaves on the trees, or we love looking up at the clouds and looking for shapes and animals, and just, again, even if it's just 5 minutes. But I know one of the things that Dennis will say in his program is nature knows the way. And as a mother, I often assume that mother knows the way. So, Mother Nature knows the way. It's a combination, like I'm creating that nature filled space, and leading by example. By no means do I have all the answers, because I do not. I'm a lifelong student, but it's just something that I've really embraced. And with the winter months coming up, there is part of me, and I don't know if Dennis, you have any thoughts on this, but there's part of me that's almost not anxious, but bummed of like, well, how I'm going to be losing this space now. I'm going to be losing this nature field healing space where my kids and I can go out to. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that of, what do you shift to as the colder months come in? But I would really encourage individuals to just find that small space and add one or two really special elements there. And when you're inside or stuck in your head, just step out there for 5 minutes and just find a way to be present with one aspect of nature.
It sounds beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, not only do I want to come to your retreats now, but I want to come to your houses. I want to come on your vacations. I like how you all roll.
Yeah. We're fun people.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I love your prayer garden. That sounds beautiful, Vicky. I love that. It sounds special. As I was thinking of it, Vicky, it made me remember your very first grounding with gratitude gathering. The weather did not cooperate. It was too not great for us to be out there. And so we gathered all the plants in the office and brought them all together in our big open space where we hold our workshops, where we hold our events, our illumination circles, our grounding with gratitude gatherings when they have to be inside. And we just surrounded ourselves with nature. And I think that for me is what came to my mind when you were saying winter's coming. And sometimes that makes people not want to be outside. So we can do both. We can bring nature in. We can surround ourselves with the plants and the waterfalls and the things that nature, shells and things that nature provides that we can bring inside. And then also a podcast that I did with one of my colleagues, Dr. Peggy DeLong, who said, Liz, you can still walk in the winter, even though it's cold, like go outside, right? So for me, because I don't like cold at all, I got a lot of winter hats and coats. So we can still, it might not be as long of a period of time, but nature in the winter has so much beauty and magic to provide for us as well.
Yeah, exactly, Liz. I would agree with kind of both of those threads that you were touching on. One is the value and the importance of bringing nature to us, especially during those colder times of year. And for those who do like research, there's a ton of research around just having plants around us or being able to see nature through windows. Like all of that gives us benefit. So it doesn't have to be outside. Secondly, and Vicky was referencing this in our training, but I had someone who had some pretty significant physical disabilities. And she said, it's really important that we also adapt how we think about nature. And so that we might not have access to big open spaces. We might not be able to get outside. We fill in the blank, but to not let our minds be the limit to connecting with the natural world. So whether that is bringing plants inside, whether you have a little earth altar, something I have that may not resonate for others, but represents the natural world, but I bring it indoors. Similarly, we can go outside and we bundle up. I would suggest that it's an occasion to kind of get our heart rate up. So it's probably going to be more physically active activities and practices and events that you're doing. The other is, it does require a little bit of money, but doesn't have to be too much, of just getting a portable stove, or just like one of those where you can just put in some firewood and so that you can gather around. There's a lot of different products. I mean, I live in a rural area, so we only have Home Depot. I'm sure people in more urban areas have a ton of choices, but Home Depot has a ton of those like outdoor portable little fire pits and stoves that you can use, or there's something called Solo Stove. And so in that way, it's a fun activity to connect with others, because then you're gathering around a fire, which is a really timeless practice across cultures and traditions since the beginning.
Yeah,
It's a great
absolutely.
idea.
I love that. I love that picture of gathering around a fire.
Mm-hmm.
We have had for a long time a program called Fireside Chats,
Ooh.
and we draw upon this notion of, again, across cultures since the beginnings of time, people have gathered around a fire to connect.
Yeah. And I think that's so wonderful, kind of to bring us full circle of, before we started recording, you had asked me, Dennis, like what is the thing that kind of synthesizes our work here? And I love that for us, it's love. For us at Visionistas, we love love, and we love helping other people like really get into noticing and experiencing all the different ways that of healing, growth, and coming back to that root of love. But that we didn't invent this, right? Like, the research is here, and we have lots of evidence, and we have anecdotal evidence. But when we come back to the foundation, is this is what has been here forever. Nature has been here. It's been a healing force in our lives since the beginning of time. And it's lovely that we are able to have the research to show us the benefits, and also to tap into that power of just kind of coming full circle and feeling like that journey of coming home to ourselves and in that connection with nature.
Yeah, you just said it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vicky and Dennis. This was such a great talk. I am so excited to share this. I hope that you, as the listeners, took some little thing that you can incorporate into your life. I invite you to recognize the things that were talked about explicitly, but then also implicitly. There's a lot of energy and love here in this space that I hope too you're feeling, and invite you to please share this episode with someone that you love. One of my favorite things in my life is when a friend will reach out to me and say, Liz, I heard this podcast and I thought of you, or I read this thing and I thought of you, and send it. It's super easy to do that. So we invite you to share this episode with someone that you love to help spread awareness of the healing power of nature that we've been talking about, and all of these amazing ideas and practices that you can incorporate right now. Get outside right now if you're not already outside. But again, I just want to go over where you can find all of us. So again, Dennis, you can find at the Eco Psychology Initiative. Vicky and I work at Visionistas by Design. You can find us on social media, our website as well. We would love to connect with you more. Follow this podcast, and again, really just hope that you learned something amazing today. And I know I did. So this was a beautiful connection for me with both of you, Dennis and Vicky. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, such a treat to be a part of it. Thank you for having me.
All right. And I will look forward to connecting with all of you again next time. Take care.